When I initially saw this truck get announced, jumping it was like the last thing that I had envisioned, because when it was announced I was like, holy cow, that thing is huge. My initial thought on it was ground clearance and big wheels and tires would be good for you know, going through a lot of stuff that the 10th scale monster trucks just can't make it through. And I had no inclination of like, oh hey, I wonder how high I can jump that thing. Last thing on my mind when I saw this. Just ended up being a natural progression of things. I started small, you know. Went out to the BMX track one day. I was like, oh, let's go out there and try it out in the snow and see what that's like. You know, they got this BMX track near my house for the like bicycle races, and they got a lot of big jumps out there, and it's really smooth. And I went out there with it and started going over some of their jumps that they have, and man, I was impressed. Like, wow, this thing soaks up a lot of the big jumps really well. And so that prompted me to build my own ramp for my house, so that way I don't have to drive out to the BMX track to do my big air jumps. And so that ramp, I just, you know, I had a couple of sodas one night and threw that together and didn't really think much of it, like, oh yeah, I'll be able to do some jumps now, so that's kind of cool. And that ramp really worked out well. I don't know what it was, I just scratched it up, you know, like made it at random. I didn't really even have a plan with it. I just bought some plywood and went with a bunch of scrap 2x4s and stuff I had laying around the house, put that together, and it just worked out perfect. It had the, you know, like the perfect angle and all of that stuff. So I started jumping that, and then I was like, oh, let's jump over this stack of pallets here. And then I jumped over the pallets, and that worked out really good. So I was like, well, my S10's sitting right here. So I jumped over the S10. That worked out really well. And then I got in the back of the S10 in the bed, and I stood in the bed of the S10 and jumped it over the S10 with me standing in it. And that worked out really good. So from there, I was like, man, I wonder if I can get the X-maxx up and over my house. Watching those first few videos I did, those Big Air Bonanza 1 and 2, I was jumping in my driveway, and you could like see the crest of the roof on my garage, and it was like very easily clearing that high. So I jumped it over my house, put the ramps up to it, put some ghetto plywood pieces that I had up on against the window in case I went off the ramp wrong. I didn't like smash through the window. I was nervous I was going to hit the ramp wrong and just shatter my truck all across the side of my garage. But luckily that didn't happen. I think I did about five hits over the house, and I only broke one time. I jumped over our vegetable garden, I jumped over our deck, I jumped over our bird feeder, and I started jumping it over my Silverado, and then I started doing front flips, because when it goes up in the air, like when you touch the brakes, it's very sensitive to brake input. But when you like give it gas, it doesn't level out as fast as it goes over. So I went over the jump a couple of times and mashed the brakes. Gives you a perfect front flip, and you can get back on the gas enough to stop that front flip.